Well, we got another some more sad news out of California. Business is already fleeing. Now, however, this state is not finished. They want to make sure every last business is gone. And now we have news that the California court, some woman basically, she was working at the C's Candy Factory, and she got the COVID, went home, passed it on to her husband. Her husband passed away, and now she's suing. Now, the sad part about this is, I mean, if COVID statistically is as infectious as the flu, especially the Omicron variant, well, everybody's going to get it, right? So could you sue your employer before for getting the flu? Of course not. That would be ridiculous. Well, now, because of our messed up court system and laws, you can do it. You could sue and potentially get money for getting COVID or the flu, because COVID is basically just replace COVID with the flu. It's just that I'm not saying as they're the same lethality. I'm saying they're just as infectious. So, what is this going to do? Why is this so bad? Well, the problem is, as if California labor laws were already really bad, this is going to make everything worse, make so much more bureaucratic, that big employers or everybody, I mean, this is a field day for HR departments. They're going to make everybody social distanced. Everybody can only take a certain amount of, if they're 15-minute lunch break by themselves in a certain area. This is all just like the HR departments and lawyers are going to benefit from this. It's not actually going to save any lives. Going to make prices more expensive. And the sooner businesses leave out of California, I mean, the more profitable they'll be. California Court of Appeals Second Appellate District ruled that Madeline Elk can sue her employer, C's Candies, for damages. And she and her 3 daughters filed a lawsuit last year asking for damages after she became sick with COVID on the job and passed it on to her husband. Madeline said C's failed its duty to care, not by spacing workers during the early days of the pandemic. So the workers were 3 feet apart or 2 feet apart, but if they were 6 feet apart, nobody would have gotten COVID. Or just replace COVID with the flu. So nobody would get, if all workers were all 6 feet apart at all times, everywhere, and all people are, the flu would have been stopped completely, dead in its tracks. Nobody ever get the flu if the employers would practice proper safety protocol. C's Candies tried to get the lawsuit dismissed, claiming Madeline must file workers' compensation because they weren't directly to blame. Judges ruled Tuesday that the household members are not bound by the limits placed on employers under California workers' compensation law. Judges wrote a 3-0 decision that a household member are not bound by the limits placed on the employees under California workers' compensation law. They said an employer whose negligence injures or kills an employee can be sued by family members for any harm they also suffer because of their relative's workplace injury, such as a COVID infection, a flu infection. When a person suffers a disabling or lethal injury, the harms they suffer from the injury necessarily extend beyond the injured person to those who love or depend on the person. Wow, this is so bad. If the court had accepted the company's argument, Bendix wrote in her decision, it would have to shield employers from the damage claims of bus passengers who were infected by a bus driver that knowingly contracted the virus and continued driving. Oh my God. So, a bus company is going to be sued because of if a driver was... How are you going to prove that knowingly or unknowingly? Maybe he didn't know. He had the sniffles. Maybe he thought I had a flu. So a bus company can be sued now if people get sick riding the bus. Yeah. I mean, it's a sad story that somebody died, but everybody is going to get COVID. Like everybody gets the flu. So some lives are going to be lost, unfortunately. People who are in certain age ranges should get vaccinated to protect themselves. But this is so impractical. And of course, they want to do this. It seems they see. I mean, it's all about ideology. They see businesses as evil, greedy, and it'd be only interested in social justice if they were more and more liable for damages. For any little thing, somebody can sue and get a windfall. Well, it's only redistributing the wealth. But little do they know, they're actually is probably none of this stuff is actually going to affect the shareholders that much or the profits. All these costs from all these lawyers probably going to be passed down to the customers who enjoy their candies, or if anything, just this company is going to leave California entirely. Elk worked at See's Candies packaging plant in Carson, California, and said her lawsuit that the company crowded workers close together with healthy people next to some people who were coughing and sneezing at the start of the pandemic. Defendants knew and should have known that their failure to take appropriate and necessary mitigation measures would increase the known and foreseeable risk that their workers, like plaintiff, would become infected in the course and scope of their work and carry that viral infection home, infecting one or more of their family members in the lawsuit. Well, if somebody got infected and passed that on to another person, well, that person probably passed that. I mean, this is like a chain letter. I mean, you might have infected a million people. So is this company going to be sued for 1 million deaths? Eck became ill on March 2020, San Francisco Chronicle reports. It was cared for at home by her husband, Arturo, and one of their daughters, who were both diagnosed with COVID a few weeks later. Arturo died of the virus in April 2020. Eck and her 3 daughters sued the company last year for unspecified damages. But attorneys for the LA-based chocolatier argue that under California's workplace compensation law, it was responsible only for coverage of injuries or illness suffered by the employees at the work, not harm to others, even if they were infected by an employee. A trial court nonetheless allowed the case to go forward. The Court of Appeal, however, said Arturo Eck's death was not derivative of his wife's becoming sick, but instead caused directly by COVID-19 virus, which wife served as a conduit. And in a 2016 case, California Supreme Court ruled that when employees came home from work with their asbestos dust on their clothing, their family members later contracted the cancer, they would be sued for damages. Well, asbestos dust is a little different. I mean, that's a hardcore carcinogen. That's one thing. But a viral infection that everybody's going to get, that's if saying everybody's in the world is going to get asbestos poisoning. So this company in particular needs to get sued. Yeah, the article goes into backstory of the See's Candies, backstory on the employee. Yeah, I mean, that's about it. I mean, it's just this is not just the See's Candies case. I mean, this has wide-reaching implications for everything, really. I mean, all companies. I mean, you'd think that. I mean, the See's Candies, I guess, doesn't have the technology to do remote packaging with robots. But could you imagine just companies that where workers could work on the computer? How could they stay in business in California? They would become completely remote. And if they become completely remote, why would they not incorporate in a different state? Why would you take the legal liability if you can be sued to have workers come into your office, sit next to each other, or even, who knows, you can sit 10 feet apart. I mean, the virus is airborne, right? So the ramifications of this, the bureaucratic nightmare, I think this is only going to speed up people leaving California. speed up remote work, and that's what California deserves.